Y'all remember Tera, right? Of course you do. It was one of the best action MMORPGs ever released. This was arguably one of my favorite games of all time. It was beautiful. The combat was phenomenal. The class diversity was great. As a pay-to-play MMO, at least. After it went free-to-play, it definitely went downhill, and some people's obsession with the with being a little perverse with Ellen's was definitely a little bit self-reporty, if you know what I mean. But overall, nevertheless, Tera was a phenomenal MMO that Bluehole, Krafton, everyone kind of dropped the ball with, and ultimately it shut down. But as of the last 24 hours, an announcement has been made that is both game-changing, incredible for those of us that were fans of the game, and terrible for those of us that were admittedly fans of the game. Now, the reason I say that is because I happened upon this Reddit thread over on the Tera Online subreddit. Krafton greenlights Tera 2. Don't give me hope. Don't do this to me. They have one job. Do not ruin this. Every time the universe pushes me to the brink, it pulls me back. Krafton greenlights Tera 2. This right here could be the defining MMO of the 2030s, because I mean, let's be honest, I haven't read this yet, but I feel like that is when the game is gonna release. As long as this does not release onto mobile as well, or as long as this is not a mobile MMO, I think this could be really, really good. One of Krafton's flagship titles, Tera, is officially in the early stages of a sequel's development. According to multiple sources, Krafton has established a new team under Bluehole Studios' R&D division specifically to develop Tera 2. This group sits within the R&D division overseen by CEO Cho Do-in, and will be led by veteran developer Kang Sang-wook, who is known internally as Bluehole's first employee after the founding members. Kang Sang-wook began his career at NCSoft before if there was ever a red flag, it would be the fact that NCSoft had anything at all to do with anything at all. But you know what? This isn't NCSoft. He began his career at NCSoft before joining Bluehole, where he became a core developer on Tera. He even emailed Chairman Chung Byung-gyu to explain that his goal was to create games he genuinely enjoys and that would appeal to players like himself, a sentiment later cited in the book of the Krafton Way. Even after the massive success of PUBG Battlegrounds, Kang took on a variety of roles, most notably helping to develop Project Cowboy. That really sounds a little suggestive over there. More recently served as an instructor to Krafton's developer training program Jungle, mentoring the next generation of in-house talent. The Tera 2 effort is currently in its very earliest phase with a team of only about 4 people. Okay, so admittedly, 2025 is out of the question, 2026 is out of the question, 2027 is out of the question. I was joking when I mentioned we might get this at some point, and might be a key defining MMO of the 2030s, but in reality, that might actually be when we get this. And let's be honest, that is okay. The reason that is okay is because developers need time to cook. We don't need them to rush this. Genuinely, this does not need to be rushed at all. They need to take their time. Don't do what Chrono Odyssey did. Don't do what every MMO in the last several years has done. No. What you need to do is analyze what players want, analyze what people loved about Tera, the original Tera that made Tera good, and then just do that again, but make it updated. Potentially make it pay to play or buy to play. You know, that way we can remove any potential interests that are not necessarily aligned with player interests. You know, free-to-play friendliness is an example. Make it easy for players to actually play the game and not require heavy investment, heavy spenders. Don't reward those. Make the game more challenging, more difficult, require teamwork, cooperative gameplay. Like, there's so many things that Tera did right but did wrong that you could kind of combine together to make it into a really good game. And admittedly, that is something that's not going to be done in a year or two. This is something that might be done in 5 or 10, which by then, admittedly, there might not even be an MMO genre, especially after Chrono Odyssey did poorly or was poorly received. Dawn and Liberty did poorly. Grand Saga, Odin Valhalla Rising, Terra's Land, Ashes of Creation has been pushed back repeatedly. Arc Age has been delayed repeatedly. The new one, and is probably not going to be that good either. Before we go any further, I do want to take a moment here to thank all of my incredible patrons over on Patreon and my YouTube channel members who allow for me to continue to do dedicated videos like this every single day. You guys are absolutely phenomenal, and I genuinely cannot thank you all enough for the support. But at the very least, I have a lot of funding due to being the team behind PUBG. Early indications suggest it will remain an MMO in the same action combat style pioneered by the original, which is great because the original's action combat was flawless, phenomenal. People to this day still consider it to have, I think, Black Desert is probably the only MMO that could compete in terms of action combat. There was no MMO that was as good as Tera outside of Black Desert. The first Tera launched back in January 2011 and was one of the earliest Korean MMOs to popularize its non-targeting combat system. Yeah, because before that, it was like Lineage and Ion. That was pretty much it. Praised for its striking visuals and dynamic battles, the game nonetheless closed its Korean servers on June 2022, 11 years after the launch, leaving many fans disappointed. You know what they tried after that? Elion. And you know how well Elion did? So poorly that it actually died, I think, the first week it released. Not just that, the game announced end of service literally within a year of it launching. If I recall, if memory serves, that game was probably one of the biggest failures of the last decade. It went from Air, Ascent, Infinite Realm, which I remember Cry, an old MMO friend of mine, and I played extensively, and then it turned into Elion, which was a complete overhaul. So many things changed, so many things were polished, and then it ultimately ended up being an open world PvPvE MMO, which generally don't do very well because most players, like WoW, like Final Fantasy XIV, like Guild Wars 2, they want to play their game casually in their own way. They don't want to be killed every time they step outside of the safe zone. Not anymore anyway. People that want that kind of active PvP system, they're playing things like Marvel Rivals, Fortnite, PUBG. So they have to be very careful that they don't fall into the trappings that original Tera fell into, and subsequently Elion fell into as well. Chairman Chung Byung-gyu has long signaled an ongoing interest in the MMORPG genre, thank God, because very few studios do these days, through both Tera and titles like Elion. Fucking hell, that was bad. And with no current flagship MMORPG in Krafton's lineup, all eyes are now on Kung Sung Wook and the fledgling Tera 2 team. And you know what? I think they can do it. I genuinely think Tera was a freaking masterpiece of an MMO. It had its flaws, okay, which I know is, contradictory to the term masterpiece, but in terms of an MMO, this was one of the best ones out there. They fucked it up thoroughly, but it still was such a good game that was just ruined by very poor handling. And I think they can actually fix that. They can remedy that, and they can make Tera 2 even better. So here's hoping for that. Also worth noting, and this is probably the best part of the entire thing, there was no mention of mobile compatibility or crossplay functionality anywhere. I know you think that you just hit the end of the video, and technically, yeah, you have. And I know your first reaction is to close out of it at this juncture, but don't. No, instead, I urge you to take a moment here and click one of the videos on screen that are coming up in just a moment so you remain up to date with everything going on in the gacha genre. Trust me, you're not going to regret doing so. Stay flaccid.